Welcome. What is up? Welcome to the Mixer. I'm your host, RC. I'm joined by my co-host here, Jeffrey, and his pups, Boop. How you doing? That
I'm
Boop
doing
was for
good.
you, by the way.
I appreciate that. They're doing good. I just took one of them on a walk, so she's a little tired, but
Gotcha.
yeah.
We are the Mixer, Formula One and NFL podcast. You can find all our stuff on our website, fcymixer.com. We have a YouTube channel. It's the Mixer channel. Links are on the website. Our socials at FC Wine Mixer. Pretty much, we got the major three locked down. And yeah, that's how you find us. Rate and review. Blah 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 blah. Let's get to it. We had the Belgian Grand Prix. My favorite track, Spa. Beautiful, set in the forest. We had half the grid taking penalties practically. So and then we had Max Verstappen just unzipping and flopping his big old 6/10 of a second lead on the field or whatever he had in qualifying. He put it on pole, but took the penalties. So he started. What did he start? 15th, 16th? I think it was 15th.
So it was 15th and then actually moved up to 13th because Sonoda and Gasly both started from the pit. That happened Sunday morning. So I think his technical spot on the grid was 15th, but I believe he only had 12 cars in front of him.
There you go. I might have to check that out. I don't remember seeing empty grid spots. Regardless, I mean, spoiler alert, Max drove to the front and won. He was in the lead by lap 12, which is insane. Starting from where he did, I think he was, seventh or something, eighth after the first lap. Was really doing well, weaving through traffic. Leclerc actually pulled up alongside him on the first lap, and then he backed off, and Leclerc lost some spots. But the biggest thing that happened in lap one, aside from everybody and their mom not going on the escape road that's no longer there, we had no cars go into the gravel on the outside of La Source, the first corner, like used to be so prevalent when it was asphalt. But after going up the hill into whatever that chicane is after the long run, Hamilton tried an ambitious move around around Fernando Alonso and turned in on him. Didn't leave Alonso too much space. Alonso's front tire hit Hamilton's back tire, popped him up in the air, broke something. I don't know if it was the engine or what. But there was on some of the arm boards, you could see like oil leaking, and they told him to stop the car. I guess it was unsafe. There's probably chassis damage. So cars aren't used to taking that kind of impact from the bottom. They're not designed. He said he experienced like a 45G impact. I don't know how that's measured because it wasn't that like, yeah. I'm a little sus on that on that number, but because I mean the car fell from a height of like 5 feet or something. I don't know how you generate that kind of like
Force that
impact.
quickly.
Yeah, but I mean, you could see that it for sure damaged the car
Right.
significantly, and so he wasn't able to continue. And then we got one of the best radio calls of the season, where Fernando said that Hamilton only knows how to start from the front, which like is kind of like a backhanded compliment in a way.
Right.
What do you think of Hamilton's grid privilege coming to a head here to bite him in Alonso's
Um,
comments?
I mean, would Alonso say the same thing about like Michael Schumacher or Mick or not Mick, Max in a few years? right? Like
Probably.
it's right, but like it's the curse of being a great driver on a great team, right? Like you're gonna be at the front all the time. Um, the thing I found funniest about this, and I didn't know this at the time, but people mentioned it afterwards, is that Lewis has more wins from not on pole than Fernando has wins in general.
Hmm.
Now, part of that is like obviously the car, stuff like that, but it just made the comment even more funny because
Hmm.
it's like, wait, like he doesn't necessarily have to be on pole to win. Um, but I mean, Fernando's right. Like most of his, wins come from up there. He doesn't, for a long time, hasn't had to deal with a whole lot of traffic, and this year's, a little different in that respect. Um, but yeah, it was just funny. It's also really funny because the two of them, from everything I've seen and people have presented, like actually really respect each other and are somewhat friendly, even though there does seem to be this weird tension between them all the time.
Well, they were teammates Hamilton's rookie year,
Right.
and they were battling. Like Alonso was supposed to be the guy, but Hamilton came in rookie hot shit, was doing really well, and McLaren being a British based team, and Hamilton a British driver, there was stuff that came out like from Alonso or leaks that he felt they were favoring Lewis because of his nationality. And then I think it was Hungary qualifying. Uh, Qualifying was a little different back then, but I think it was the first or second season of the knockout qualifying, and so they were in the final. They were in the final, like Q3. I think it was still referred to the same. It might not have been back then. Um, but so Alonso was on the track first. He came in and they were kind of like stacking the pits to go out for their final run. They switched tires and dropped him, and then Hamilton came
He just
behind him,
sat there,
and
right?
yeah, and Alonso just sat there, didn't go. It was like just looking at his mirror for like 10 seconds, and you see the guy like waving him. He's like, "Come on, like get going," and they're just like kind of looking what's going on. And you can see him like checking his mirror, and then he pulls out, goes and sets fastest lap, and Hamilton misses the line by like 2 seconds. I mean, he timed it perfect. And then he got a penalty and had to start from the back. Yeah, and then there was kind of like infighting, and then Alonso left the team. I can't remember who cut ties with who. I suppose it was probably mutual, but yeah, Alonso has done stuff like that. But yeah, and so we've been kind of waiting for that to boil over for a while. But Alonso went back to Renault, who wasn't really competitive for a few seasons, and so he wasn't really running next to Hamilton too
Right.
much. So, I mean, I think just over time those tensions dissipated. Um, Alonso, I mean, I think there's some truth to what Alonso said. He probably didn't want everybody else to hear it, but um, yeah, I think it's probably true. Like Hamilton is not as practiced at that. So yeah,
Right.
but I mean, it
It,
doesn't mean he's a bad driver or anything. It's just that'd be like somebody like freaking Latifi or that's impossible. Like Lance Stroll. Let's say Lance Stroll gets his setup right, throws out a freaking banger, and then there's like a red flag or something, and Lance Stroll ends up on pole, and then he botches
right.
the start. And somebody's like, Lance Stroll, trash. He doesn't know how to start from the front. It's like, oh yeah, he doesn't.
Right.
But
Yeah, I mean
it was
it's just
hilarious.
one of those things. It was funny in the moment, and as you said there, right? Like there's different ways to drive based on where you are on the grid, and
Yeah.
like you see that Max and Lewis are the best at just driving to a number, right? And
Mm-hmm.
because that's what you do when you're in front, you just drive to a number. Um, So it's kind of Lewis probably isn't, as you said. I mean, this year he's getting back into it, but he's never been the most practiced at like having to deal with too much traffic for very long, right? Like he's
Yeah,
never really had to do that. So
and I mean Sebastian Vettel when he made the, or actually when Red Bull just kind of fell off, and when he moved to Ferrari, he kind of had to go through that period too, where he wasn't like a prolific passer. He was just used to running in the front,
yeah,
but he got used to it. So yeah, it's just you just create. I wish Hamilton would have clapped back and said, yeah, I am used to starting from the front because I don't burn bridges with every team I've ever signed with or something like that, to just take a dig at Alonso.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't know. It probably could have been worded better, but that would have been hilarious.
I'm
Um,
with you.
so because of, well, actually, I mean, I guess it wasn't, but the other major thing that happened in the first lap was Leclerc got a tear off, sucked into his brake duct, caused one of his brakes to overheat, so they had to pit him and bring him in. And it turns out it was Max Verstappen's tear off. So,
I don't think it was. I think
oh, okay,
I
well,
saw.
Jeff, I don't know if you know this, but people on Reddit did their Formula One forensics, and if we can trust one group of people in this world, surely not the FBI, we cannot trust, but people on Reddit, screenshots. I saw screenshots, but go
I
ahead.
saw I saw multiple deep dives that point to Lance Stroll being the guy.
Mm, it would be
But
Stroll.
whatever happened, a visor tear off got into Leclerc's brake duct, right,
Mm-hmm.
and forced the pit stop. So
Which has been happening more often because the larger uh, intakes for the brakes, air intakes, and I don't know, the wing design. Uh, Steve Matchett, when who's like a broadcaster, capital B broadcaster. He used to do, I guess NBC Sports had Formula One last before ESPN, and Speed Vision. I don't know if anybody remembers Speed Vision, but he used to always say he was like convinced Kimi Räikkönen was cursed, and it was seriously like every single race if somebody took a tear off in front of him, he would be like, "Oh, it's gonna get sucked into his airbox," knowing Kimi's like I mean, every race he always said it,
yeah,
and I'm like, this freaking geezer saw this happen once, and he always says it's gonna happen, and it never has. But this season, it's happened a few more times. Um, I mean, I've heard it proposed that like the tear offs, they shouldn't just discard them. I guess Sebastian Vettel keeps them in the cockpit. I don't know if there's like any danger to doing that, but I mean, I'm all for not littering, especially like can't redesign the cars, but a simple fix is like just don't, you know, don't rip them off and just throw them on the side of the track if this keeps happening. It's basically
right.
frigging the Mario Kart banana peel that
Yeah, I mean
everybody's really enjoying photoshopping.
it kind of ruined Leclerc's race, right? Like he comes back and ends up with, I guess, a decent result, but having to pit so early
Mm-hmm.
just put him in a pretty bad spot overall. He
Yeah,
couldn't charge through the field the way Max could because,
right.
and I mean, he ends up getting through the field, but yeah, it just kind of ruined his race. He seems to be, it's funny with how the season started with the Red Bulls with 2 DNFs in the first race and like 4 in the first 3 races or whatever, right? But you thought that Max was going to have, or not Max, but Red Bull in general was going to have an unlucky year. And it turns out that Ferrari is like, whether it's their strategy calls, whether it's, getting a tear off in the brake duct, you know, things just don't seem to go their way.
Mm.
Whereas Red Bull seems to be getting everything right. And it's just kind of one of those years where I don't think the points gap is really reflective of how competitive the cars are. Um, but yeah, it's just crazy.
I agree. So bad luck for Charles. He had to pit. He got new tires, and they cleared the tear off. And then we had the restart. Just a minor note, signs locking it up after. I mean, I wouldn't. I don't know. Signs doesn't seem to be very good at restarts. He's not used to restarting from the front, as Fernando would say. He like locked it up into the chicane, and then somehow like him fucking up actually pushed Perez back, and he got a little jump. But anyway, I just thought that was kind of funny, and
Yeah.
I mean, from there, Verstappen just charged through the field by lap 12 with the pit cycle. He was in the lead. And I mean, there were a few times the lead was changed due to the pit cycle when he would pit and other guys would be out longer. But I mean, he pretty much cruised to the win. I don't know what the final gap was, but I mean, he was just on another level.
It was 17.8 seconds.
Yeah, it was good seeing Vettel staying up there. He was like top 5, top 6 most of the race. I can't remember
He
exactly
finished
where
8th,
he
but
finished.
yeah.
Okay. But especially in that in the Aston Martin, which hasn't looked too good, to do that is impressive. Good guy, Sebastian Vettel getting points for Aston Martin. Uh
Albon getting
Leclerc,
points for Williams.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Albon finished P10 and looked good. That Williams fast in a straight line, and McLaren's, especially Ricardo, just oof. I guess their car is not good in a straight line, but it was almost like they didn't even have a strategy for Ricardo, who started higher to get any points. He was just like, when they coordinated their stops, it was like totally suboptimal for Ricardo's outcome, and
Yeah.
they like brought him in early so uh so so Lando could do the overcut or whatever, and then Lando just finishes 12th. Like, I feel like Ricardo, he was only 4 seconds down from Albon. It looks like from the finish 6. Like, I feel
Yeah, I
like
think it's about 6.
if they would have let if they would have done, the optimal strategy for Ricardo, they like he could have brought in points. Like,
Yeah,
and
he
so
also they did mention that he didn't get to run their new wing
yeah.
because it had an issue over the weekend. So they were running a higher downforce wing than they wanted to for him. Maybe that's why they made those decisions in the race, because they thought he couldn't keep up. But
Mm-hmm.
as you said, with their pit strategy, I think they cost him at least like 6 seconds, because Lando was like 3 or 4 behind him, and ended up, after their pit sequence, ended up like 5 or 6 ahead of him. It seemed like so. Seemed like
Yeah.
he lost about 8 to 10 seconds there, which, if that's the case, that puts him up into 10th. Um,
McLaren
so
is low key probably the second most mismanaged team as far as race strategy goes, and maybe even driver contracts with their whole situation going on.
I
They're
also
just
think
Ferrari's just so bad they don't get the same kind of attention.
Right. I also think that McLaren is just a bad car to drive, and has been for a long time. I saw somebody talking about it, that like they're clearly not the worst, right, in terms of like performance, but um, someone went back and said the way they've designed their cars since for like 10 or 15 years makes them incredibly hard to drive, and
Hmm.
that's why like they haven't gotten some of the best performances, even though they've had pretty good drivers. Um, and that could be one of the reasons Daniel's like really struggling, is because of how the car, like you have to get the car into certain positions in cornering to get it to perform, and it's just really hard to do. Um, so I thought that was pretty interesting. I'll see if I can find that again. But someone, like, it was a former like race engineer, did a deep dive on McLaren and was like, yeah, the way they design their car makes it really hard to do certain things with it. But they obviously make a decent car, right? Because they can still finish fourth, fifth in the constructors. So
Yeah. Yeah, they need to rethink their approach somehow. They need to bring in a better aerodynamicist or just speak with the drivers more, because they just haven't been there for the last decade, really, to
right,
where they used to be. I mean, I think they're the second most successful manufacturer. I mean, Mercedes might be catching them now, but not what they used to be. I forgot to mention Latifi spun on either lap 1 or lap 2, just totally unforced, which was hilarious, and he took out Bottas. But yeah, and then at the end of the race, of course, Ferrari had to figure out something to screw up. So Leclerc was running P5, wasn't going to catch George Russell, who was ahead of him. And so they were like, well, we can, if he can stretch out a gap to 20 seconds or whatever over Alonso, he was like 18 seconds behind at the time. We can bring you in and go for fastest lap. And I typically listen to the Ferrari drivers, or I have it up on my laptop. I have the onboard on while watching the race on my TV. And since Leclerc was, going to be mid pack the whole time and just with the Ferrari fiasco, I just stayed with him the whole race. And I was listening to it, and I mean, they said it like 5 laps before the end of the race, and they were kind of talking back and forth. At one point, Leclerc says, I don't think he's like, I don't really necessarily think that we should, or he sounded unsure. It sounded like he communicated that he would prefer not to try to go for the fastest lap. And then he asked what the fastest lap time was, and it was like 149 something 6 or whatever. And he's like, okay, yeah, I can do that. He said, I can do that. And so they made the call. They boxed him. Pit stop was okay. He came out behind Alonso, which, you know, uh, complicated things because he had dropped his spot. He was able to pass him, got a decent tow. Still couldn't set the fastest lap. He was like 0.6 off or something from Max's top time. And on top of all that, the tear off earlier that got stuck in his brake duct supposedly damaged a sensor and caused him to speed in the pit lane by 1 kph. That's kilometer per hour for all the non-metric units of measure people out there. Yeah, 5-second penalty dropped him down a spot, so he finished P6. Is Ferrari snatching a failure from a slightly smaller failure?
yeah,
Oh my god. And then I forgot to mention in qualifying, they put Leclerc out on new softs or something when he was supposed to be on used softs, and he's like, "What are these tires?" They're like, "Oh yeah, sorry, it was a mistake." And then I don't know. I didn't read the article, of course, because I'm a millennial, but there was a headline from Racer Magazine that said, from Bonato, that said sometimes people are perceiving mistakes that are not actually mistakes or something like that. It's
yeah,
like, it is so out of touch, man. Like, they got to get rid of that guy. They have to. They just need to rip it all out, man. I'm telling you, they need a female team manager. Get the boys in line, and yeah, but I don't know. They're Ferrari. They probably won't do that. And the memers rejoice.
yeah. I mean,
Um, So
It's pretty
yeah,
rough.
depressing.
I do have to say, the FIA, I will give them credit for giving Leclerc the penalty, although it's irritating thinking back to things that have happened this season. So, like, for Americans, 1 kph is like half a mile an hour. Okay. So, like, I think they're limited to like 50 or 60 in the pit lane or something like that. So he's going like whatever plus 0.5, right? Or 0.6. I forget what it is. So barely over. But then we look at like the rules that were set or talked about going into this year, how the white line is the racetrack, right? And we think about to things like Silverstone, where Perez goes over the white line multiple times, making moves or pushing people out and stuff like that. And things aren't enforced. And those are more blatant than like a half a mile an hour difference or a 1 kph difference.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate their strictness to the letter of the law. I just wish they did it everywhere. Like, you have these rules in place, so use them. Like, you show that you're willing to. Just do it.
Yeah, there's some inconsistencies for sure. Unfortunately, I think it's always going to be that way. I mean, I like the point system where they dock drivers instead of and then give them penalties. But yeah, especially the track limits, it's just so
It's so easy to
yeah.
define. But yeah, I actually am, I think, in favor of, instead of like a 5 or 10 second penalty, just dock them points. Just straight up. You finish where you finish, but you're going to lose 5 points type thing. Just do that.
They just need to bring back gravel traps. They did talk about, because teams are taking so many engine penalties and still able to get good results because you can pass in these cars now.
Yeah.
Docking points if you go over a certain allowance, which could be interesting. I mean, what they maybe should do is, uh, you know, have a time penalty on top. Like, you can't leave the pits until 20 seconds or something after the lights go out.
Yeah.
Because they still have it. Well, then I mean, there might be a caution and it negates it. I don't know. The points deduction thing seems a little ticky tack, but yeah, it can be refined. Uh,
Yeah.
these these rules. So yeah, Verstappen wins. What is his points lead? I don't even want to look. I'm sad. I am sad.
His points lead is what, like 93 or something
He
like
has
that.
284 points. So Red Bull are now 1-2. Sergio Perez has 191. Leclerc has 186. And Sainz has 171. So yeah, it's looking pretty grim for Ferrari. Nearly 100-point lead for Verstappen over Leclerc. So yeah, I mean, they're saying that looks like Max will probably lock up the title by Coda. So congrats, Jeff. You might get to see, somebody.
Win a title.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that all they do is like the guy who goes out there and interviews it, like references
Gotcha.
it. The team will probably do something. I mean, he might do some extra burnouts. You never
Yeah.
know.
I
Go
will
ahead.
say, related to the standings, the interesting thing to look for is there's a 21-point spread from second to fifth in the standings. So that's Sergio Perez to George Russell with the two Ferrari guys in between. I highly doubt George can catch Sergio because he's in the Red Bull, but it does look like the Ferraris are catchable. So depending on how the second half of the season goes, Ferrari and Leclerc may not even end up in, a top three driver standing spot.
The far cry from the Australian Grand Prix where it looked like Ferrari was going to run away with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're on to 2023. But I mean, although the Formula 1 race for the championships may be all but over. Silly season is just kicking off. We have Audi announcing formally their entrance into Formula One in 2026. The rumors, I mean, I don't even know that it's a rumor. It's all but confirmed. They will be acquiring Alfa Romeo, which is actually Sauber, under the Alfa Romeo branding. Yeah, super excited. They're going to have their own powertrain. It's not going to be the Volkswagen group. It's not going to be a Porsche engine badged as an Audi. They're going to have their own development team, which is great. Audi has had a lot of success in sports car racing. They had a run through the aughts, late 90s, early aughts, where they were dominating Le Mans. They were only ever challenged by Peugeot and Bentley, also part of the Volkswagen group now. I believe at the time, though, Bentley was not. So super exciting. I mean, they could be on par with a team like Alpine from the drop. I mean, they are they're like the opposite of Ferrari. They have like great management teams, great relationships between their managers and their drivers. They took a dig at Mercedes and kind of Porsche about being the like a German a car or a team actually based in Germany for the first time since like 2007 or something. Because Mercedes, although a German brand, I guess operates out of like Silverstone area in Great Britain. So
I think, yeah,
yeah, they're already taking shots, and I love it. I'm excited. Yeah, and with that, there's going to be a lot of moving pieces. The other big piece of news is Porsche, who was, I mean, it's pretty. It's been openly reported that they were going to buy a share of Red Bull, and yeah, it was going to be Red Bull Porsche or something like that. And I believe we had discussions like, what is this exactly? Because Red Bull is supposedly doing their own power unit. So, like, where does the Porsche come into it? Are they just, gonna be like this high dollar sponsor? Um, because Red Bull in the past, I mean, they used to have an Infinity brand on their rear wing, which is part of the Nissan group. And then the Aston Martin, they had Aston Martin on the back of the wing, but it was Red Bull Racing, and that was just like a sponsorship. So I'm like, is that all Porsche's gonna do? Is Red Bull gonna have their own power unit development, because supposedly they're taking over the Honda factory that builds their engines, and that was going to be like Red Bull Racing Technologies or something like that. Like, how does Porsche factor into it? And now it's being reported that it's still not finalized. So there's something going on. It sounds like, yeah, I mean, it sounds like the deal isn't to Porsche's liking. And if I had to speculate, which is what we do, because we're not capital J's, we're lowercase J's, so we can speculate. Yeah, I mean, I think Porsche wants to develop the power unit, or at least get credited for it being a Porsche power unit. And Red Bull's like, why? Like, like we've put in all the work. We've been freaking grinding our dicks off for years with shitty Honda engines. Like, we want the cred. Like, we don't need your financing, I think was the quote, was like Christian Horner's thing. Like, we don't need your money to like basically be a glorified advertisement for your brand. So kick rocks. We'll put Porsche on the back of the wing if you give us whatever budget. And like, yeah, you could say Porsche returns. You can friggin' throw pictures in your showrooms, whatever you want to do. But yeah, this is going to be a Red Bull. So yeah, what do you think about this whole situation?
Well, I'm all for more teams on the grid, so I hope Porsche does not join with Red Bull and decides to enter on their own. Although I highly doubt that happens, but that would be my ideal finish to this. Yeah, I would love to have 11 teams or even 12, put 22, 24 cars on the grid, and let's go. But yeah, that's
So
really my only thought.
this is going to be all guessing and speculation. AlphaTauri, the Red Bull sister team. I don't know how they can play into it. AlphaTauri is a clothing brand now. It's like Red Bull's clothing brand. So they're going to be reluctant to give up that team because it's another arm of the Red Bull conglomerate, we'll say.
Right. It also allows them to put their junior drivers in, which we've seen teams not having enough seats can be a problem, right?
Yeah. And then I think from Porsche's perspective, they're not going to want to be the little bro to to a soda company. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they're not going to want to. So yeah, and I mean, I have kind of raised my eyebrow at this whole arrangement because I know like Porsche. I mean, they're one of the most prominent car makers in the world. If I mean, it's like Ferrari, Porsche, Mercedes, like Ford. I mean, they're huge.
Yeah.
And they're gonna want to be the big fish. You know, you can see like Audi, who's still pretty well known, but you could see them being okay with not having to be like the biggest name. They're gonna want
Right.
their success to speak for themselves. Porsche. So anyway, um, I can see this playing out. I guess one of three ways. I still don't see it working out. Like I mean, I think this is total like where there's smoke, there's fire. There's definitely fire here. I don't think Red Bull and Porsche are going to be able to make it work.
Yeah.
Um, Red Bull has all the leverage in this situation, and I don't really see too much incentive for them to be partnered with Porsche.
Yeah.
So Porsche could finance their own team and add an 11th team to Formula One. However, with the profit sharing agreement that they currently have, that would mean the manufacturers would be splitting the profits in another share, which I don't see the other teams approving. That's kind of been the barrier for Andretti to get a team. Porsche's a little bit bigger name, so they might be able to get the other owners, the other teams to agree to it. I don't know what the ruling is, if it's a majority or if it has to be a consensus or whatever for another team to be accepted. But um, there's definitely much more that has to go into it, and it would require more of an investment from Porsche, which they can certainly do. However, that is, that is the challenge. The other option, the third option, would be that they acquire a team a la Audi acquiring Sauber. Which we would have to look at which teams are available. So there's Williams, which so there's Williams, there's Haas, McLaren, maybe Alpine, not likely. So Jeff, I mean, what's your read on it? If Porsche were to pick another team to partner with or to buy, which do you have any suspicions for any way?
Yeah, I don't know how true it was, but earlier in the year it was reported that Lawrence Stroll was looking to get out of the Aston Martin situation and sell that team. Again, I don't know how serious that was, but I could see them being available because while he is a billionaire, he's not a 20 billionaire. He's more of a like 2 or 3 billionaire. Um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Again, still a lot of money, but we're talking about a couple $100 million a year. Depending on what happens, could hurt the bottom line at some point. I think they would be available. I think that I don't think Haas would really be available. I could see Williams being available because they are owned by a hedge fund. So if somebody came in and made the right offer, I could 100% see that being a good investment for them, and they take the money and run type thing. But yeah, I don't really know. Formula One at this point is becoming a profitable sport for these teams with their new TV deals and stuff like that. Like the sport is growing and the cost cap and all that. So I don't know how many teams are really in a rush to sell anymore. Um, so I think it would be difficult, but I think it could be done. You just might have to kind of do what you see done in the American sports, is where like these teams completely get overpaid for because they're just money making machines. Now, Formula One isn't quite at that level yet, but it's kind of getting there. So, yeah, I could definitely see it happening. I just think it'll be difficult. Like, I don't see Haas selling. Like, they're at the point where they're saying they don't even need a pay driver type thing, right? So, yeah.
I like that call with Aston Martin, but Lance Stroll won't have anywhere to drive if that happens, and
Yeah.
yeah, I know. I guess I'm just making a joke because his dad owns the team. Yeah, I like that call. I mean, Mercedes is heavily linked with Aston Martin being their engine supplier. So, yeah, and I know there has been a lot of big sponsors with that whole program. But I mean, that team has bounced around from all kinds of different names. I believe it's okay. I don't know what it was before Force India, but yeah, that was Vijay Mallya, Indian billionaire, brought that team on, and it's gone through a few different changes over the years. Racing Point, and now Aston Martin. One reason why I like that theory or idea is because of Fernando going there. I don't know that Fernando is going to be around in 2026 if he's going to Tom Brady this thing until into the ground. But yeah, I can see him being an ambassador for Porsche if you know if they come in sooner. And I mean that might but then it'd be like Porsche Mercedes because they need an engine before the new regulations, and I don't see that likely. So yeah, I mean, with the timeline, it might be that. Yeah, because I mean, 2026 is not super in the near. You know what I mean? It's still 4 years
Right.
away. So yeah, it's probably going to even complicate things with Alfa Romeo and Sauber. I mean Alfa Romeo just might drop its name and they might be running a Sauber for the next few years, which I would actually prefer. Um, so we'll see where that goes, but yeah, that kind of does complicate things because of the whole branding and getting the financing. But I could certainly see that happening. So I kind of got a hot take, hot. I mean, way out there. I mean, this is me swinging for the fences as far as predictions go. But I will remember your boy here was first on the Mick Schumacher is kind of trashy. Um, is not good. Pierre Trashley, who can forget? And who else was I? Who else have I been right on? I'm trying to think of the third.
Absolutely nobody.
Ricardo. I mean Ricardo. I was like, what's up with Ricardo? Super early. I was like, he's gotta, he's not safe. I mean, it's one thing to say, it's one thing to go out and say like Guozhan Yu, like I don't know about his future in Formula One. It's like, yeah, no shit. Or Latifi, you know,
Right.
um, or Lance Stroll only has a ride because his daddy owns the team. Your boy's swinging for the fences. Um, so anyway, and then just Pierre Gasly might be out at AlphaTauri. Something that people would not have thought at the beginning of the season. And we were on it. We were on it.
Well, hold
So
on. I don't think Pierre will be out because they don't want him. He will be out because he gets another contract from a different team, is the way it sounds.
yeah, but I mean, if they wanted him, they could just say like, okay, here's more money. They don't. They're
True.
like they're indifferent about it. You
Yeah.
know, it's like Pierre Gasly's like, oh, I opened a Tinder account, and AlphaTauri's just like, yeah, whatever. Go do your thing. I don't fucking care. Um, so, I mean, we've kind of been saying like something's up, something's fishy, like especially with all the driver rearrangement. And I think the big fish in this Formula One pond is Lewis Hamilton's future, and tied into that is Mercedes' future. So I mean, they came in 2008, 2009. I can't remember off the top of my head. Struggled, languished in mediocrity, regularly finishing off out of the points. Um, and then they became this behemoth once Lewis Hamilton joined the team. We have new engine regulations coming in 2026. It seems like Red Bull are going to be tough. Toto Wolff has been expressing displeasure with the car and the design. It could just be a case of a team that's always been there for the last decade, kind of losing their drive, their motivation, or it could just be Mercedes is focusing on other things now, growing their brands other ways. Um, having the Kardashians drive around their freaking what are those? What are those old school? The D types? What are their SUV? What's their SUV?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know the
Yeah, so
Mercedes car line.
yeah, uh, it's either E or D. Anyway, um, G wagon. It's G. It's the G wagon. Nailed it.
Oh,
Got it.
that's what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah, the G wagons. They just
Yeah,
need the Kardashians and Addison Ray's mom to drive around in G wagons. I don't even know who Addison Ray is really. I just or Young Gravy or what is that I guess. Anyway,
I think so.
I try to stay in touch with the Zoomers, but I mean it's just getting more and more ridiculous with the shit they're coming out with. Um, I could see. I mean I feel like it's not the chances of Mercedes walking away in 2026 is not zero. And yeah, I just like where do they go from after what they did with Lewis Hamilton? Like are they going to want to fight and scrap and claw and you know what I mean? Or do they just say, "Yeah, we dominated that era. That's what we want to be known for. We don't want to become like Williams is now." Williams at one point was the behemoth, McLaren too, and now they're like mid pack. And I mean, McLaren's still a reputable name. Williams surely isn't. So I could see them walking away, and especially like coinciding with the end of Lewis Hamilton's career. And I could see that team being turned over to Porsche, and then we enter the Porsche era.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. I think a lot of it would depend on the people that run Mercedes and their willingness to continue, right? Like, does Toto want to continue managing that team?
Mm-hmm. Do you ever hear of the
Right.
7-year itch?
I've heard the term, don't necessarily know the meaning of it.
Yeah, I think it's an old timey movie with who knows, some famous actress that I probably don't know. I would recognize the name, but like if you showed me 3 pictures and like that actress was one of them, I wouldn't be able to guess it. Not the best joke, but the premise is basically like after 7 years you'd like get tired and like start a Tinder account basically with your significant other. But yeah, I mean, I just they've been there, done that. They came, they saw, they conquered. Time to walk away. Um, like freaking Jerome Bettis once he got his Super Bowl. I can't like Barry Sanders, except that Barry Sanders actually won something for 7 years.
Right.
um, there's a multiverse where that actually happens. So stay woke. I don't know where I'm going here with this, but I think it's possible, and I think Mercedes could step away, and I feel like that's would fit a lot of pieces into place with the driver movement and some of the other plays. So
Yeah.
it's out there, but I mean, put a pin in it. We got 4 years to decide if this is wrong or just totally out there. But I mean, I've seen it happen before with these big manufacturers leaving racing. It's just like when there's a huge shift, when you think that there's going to be like, oh, it's going to be crazy. There's going to be this team and that team and this team, and they're all going to be fighting it out. It's like usually one of the big fishes leaves, and Ferrari's not
Yeah.
leaving. Red Bull's not leaving.
Right.
So
It would be
Mercedes,
interesting too, for the other teams, because Mercedes provides engines to 3 or 4 different teams, right? So if they decided to leave, does Porsche, um,
fill the
take over
void.
that, right?
Yeah.
Or do they split up and go different ways?
Yeah, well, I mean, Audi's going to be developing their own, so like I suspect other teams would want the Audi equipment, and I mean, tied into all this is the whole Red Bull Racing Technologies element, which is actually Honda, and like Honda actually having some success, they could be
Right.
like, let's freaking push these engines out to other teams, and let it ride. So, I mean, wild. I mean, I could see it happening. Yeah, I mean, like if I could bet that, I would bet it. Like I think I get long odds, but I mean, you know, that'd be a ticket I would want to put in. So yeah, that's where my head's at on this whole thing. And then I had one other hot take that maybe I'll let simmer for a
Okay.
little bit because
You're
basically
afraid of
I'm
it?
like I got the itch, like it's addicting. I feel like I'm riding a high, like being right about Ricardo, sadly, being right about Pierre Trashley gloriously, and also kind of sadly being right about Mick Schumacher. Um Nothing but the best for Mick. I hope he does. God, why is Red Bull? Red Bull wants Colton Herta and Mick Schumacher. It's like a man has no team. A man has no team. A man has no driver. Like who the hell do I root for? Everybody's going to the evil empire, um,
Yeah.
or making me go crazy. Just like Leclerc. I feel like Leclerc. Oh, that's what we need to start doing. Dark Leclerc memes. That's what he needs to do. He needs to get the laser eyes and just embrace the Joker and become the villain. That's what he needs to do. He needs villain energy. He just needs to start like talking shit about signs. I can get behind that.
I'm with it.
Yeah, come with us, Chuck. Stop being a nice guy. Yeah, I mean, there's more to that. I can remind me to expand upon the Dark Leclerc
Right.
in the future about how drivers need to embrace that dark side to get their first title. And yeah, and yeah, I got my eye on somebody, usually towards the front of the grid that I might put the trash label on. Yeah, so that's where I want to go with it.
Sergio Perez.
No. I mean, Perez has always been kind of up and down. He's like,
You're gonna say Ocon?
no. I mean, Ocon is like I think like the inverse. You can't guess it. I'm not going to confirm or deny anymore. I'm just going to say that if you throw a name out there, because I don't want to give it away. But Ocon is actually like, yeah. I mean, he's like the reverse. He's like trash that has turned into something. He's like Ocon's like top 20 all time in Grand Prix somehow. Is because there's so many races now.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the drivers on the grid are like in the top 20. But anyway, no. Do you have any thoughts on football before we run too long here?
I mean, not really, to be honest. It's we're still like 8-9 days away or something like that, maybe less.
Yeah.
I think it's 8. But yeah,
Uh,
I'm excited. I'll have my pick next week. We'll have a little more time for football since it'll be week 1.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I'll share it out.
Thoughts and prayers to Brian Robinson, who got shot. I'm trying to think of the other. Oh, Jimmy Garoppolo staying with San Francisco. What the hell are they up to? I'm excited to see how that plays out. Yeah, I'm not a huge Shanahan fan, so yeah, I'm rooting for chaos up in the Bay or whatever they call that area,
Right.
Cupertino. Yeah, we got it. We got the dog bark on the mic. It wouldn't be a mixer pod without the dogs jumping in. We got Zandvoort, Dutch Grand Prix, Ferrari should be good there. I'm sure this is what's going to happen. I'm going to get all hyped. Ferrari's going to have like a freaking half-second lead in every session, and I'm going to put way too many DraftKings lineups with Ferrari, and I'm going to miss the freaking 10K payout by 2 drivers like I did this week in Belgium because I had Ricardo and Mick, and I needed to have Vettel and Joe.
Nice. Yeah, Zandvoort FP1 will be interesting because they are, I believe, doing some sort of DRS on a big bank. I believe it's the last one. They're going to let them open it while they're on the bank or something like that
Okay.
as a test. So, yeah, that should be pretty interesting.
As much as I hate that this is Max Verstappen's home track and there's going to be so much orange. This is going to be orange porn everywhere. And there's going to be flares and like the surrounding area isn't that spectacular. I think it's near the ocean. This track is super fucking cool. I like it. It hates me to say. So I'm excited for it. And yeah, unlike Spa where it was super easy to pass, and since the cars are kind of made easy to pass, like it kind of made for a less than exciting race. I mean, I still think it was pretty good. This is the opposite. And unlike Monaco, where it's impossible to pass, this one is just harder. So anyway, it should be a fun race. I'm excited. You got anything else before we get out of here?
I do not.
Thanks for listening. Rate and review. Tell your friends. Tell your barkeepers. I don't know. Just get the word out there. We love you all. And Let's get some pumpernickel
Let's do it.
and PF
Got to
Chang's.
get Toto back on top.
Toodaloo!